back to the BAT podcast. After much ado, we are back with a staff edition. Howard, Alex, and Zach. Gentlemen, good to be with you.
Nice, Howard. Lots to talk about since we last convened, huh?
Is there? I think we had a little bit of a disagreement about what the agenda would be. Is there plenty to talk about? I guess we'll find out.
Just the thousands of emails we've been sending week over week since we last met.
You guys are coming on the heels of Reggie Jackson, so this is a tough place to be. But I think you guys are doing all right.
I was thinking about bringing that one up. First, thank you for allowing me to even be back
I think
here.
last time we sorely disappointed everyone after following up Jay Leno. Is that right?
Are you used to disappointment, Zach? I'm actually fairly used to disappointing people. I've been married for a dozen years, so it's normal for me.
I did wear a denim shirt with jeans to that podcast.
Nonetheless, I think we do have a few things to discuss. Alex and I, sadly, Zach was not there. Alex and I were both in Seattle 2 weeks ago now for our truly wonderful alumni gathering. First time we've been in the Seattle area for that.
Well, that's great. I get to drill you guys with questions about the event I didn't attend.
You know, we've done maybe almost 10 of those now over 2 or 3, maybe more.
I think we've done more than that, I think.
Maybe 15, but they've all been great. But this one may have been the best one yet, just in terms of quality of cars, quantity of cars, location. It was pretty sweet.
So what was total turnout, would you guys guess?
350, 400 maybe, something like that, Howard. It was a tremendous amount.
I think it was at least 400 cars and probably 500 plus people.
Yeah, we had to get a little creative with the so we shut the street down in front of the shop, which is a really cool car storage facility.
Thank God this event wasn't in San Francisco. It never would have worked.
Oh my God, totally. So we had their parking lot holds maybe 30, 40 cars. So we had to shut down the street, had to ask the city to shut down the street in order to accommodate all the interest we had. And then we set up the barriers the day before, put up the no parking signs, and then so many cars showed up we had to get a little creative about the outer limits of our shutdown street. Pushed those barriers back and made room for another.
Yeah, I mean, this is audio only, obviously, so it's hard to show you any photos. We did do a great recap site post with some great video we made, so I would encourage folks to check that out. But if you showed up there before the event started, you would say, wow, we got more space we know what to do with, and we barely fit everyone in. So testament to everyone that came out. A lot of locals, obviously, but people came from Portland, people came from Vancouver,
a lot of Canadians,
from Yakima, from the east. So people were jazzed.
Great variety of cars.
First up, can I ask personal favorites of either of yours?
Howard, you go.
I mean, there was a lot. I was Alex and I both were kind of doing check-in, so that's a great post to be at. Alumni gatherings are great. The staff divvies up various roles. Some roles are better than others. But some people don't want to be the check-in guy because you got to stand there all morning, and it's pretty active. I love it because you get to talk to every person, see every car. Favorites, I mean, there was probably the best first generation MR2 I have ever seen. Black, you never see him in black.
Supercharged?
Non-supercharged. I think there was a guy in a red one that was supercharged, but it was just, I mean, as time marches on, cars like that, when you see just a cherry bone stock one.
I ask you the question that every single person asked that guy at a gas station and then reacted the same way and went, absolutely.
I didn't even ask him if he was registered. I didn't care. I just wanted that car there. And
Sweet.
Yeah, I knew it was pretty good.
For me, the standout was a car that I absolutely loved when it was on the website. A Model A 5-window coupe hot rod with a red Ram Hemi, the little baby Hemi. I think I've talked on this podcast before about how I would like a 5-window, either a 32 Ford or a Model A.
You love that thing. You were going nuts for that.
Yeah, T5 5-speed gray. Only thing I would change is to put it on deuce rails rather than a Model A frame. But man,
sorry, roadster or coupe?
5-window coupe, 4-inch chop. Red Ram Hemi, which is a little baby Hemi, T5 5-speed, period looking.
How far did he drive it from?
I can't remember how far he drove, but he drove it a fair amount. He says he drives it all the time and takes his kids to school in it. He's like a youngish guy rocking a very sweet stash. He's actually in our video. They do a little interview with him in our video because I specifically told the videographer to talk to that guy. He said it was his dream car. And then coincidentally, there was also a chopped 32 Ford, louvered up, 3-window coupe, chopped, also with a Hemi.
This car.
In it. That car.
Yeah.
That car was fantastic.
32 numbers on the side. It was pretty good. But yeah, no flames, no nonsense. Just
That's the 32. There's another hot rod that's a Model A. That's
There you
actually
go.
the
Sorry,
32.
you guys
I
are
got you.
looking at photos from our alumni gathering posts. Is that correct?
that's
Yes,
right.
that's
That's right. I'm digging
Everyone
through
can
the
follow
gallery.
around. All 9 people that are still listening, Mom, hope you're doing well, can follow along on our site post.
Big shout out to our staffers who showed up. They were all very helpful. Quite a few people who we never met before, folks from that neck of the woods, and so that was great. So it was a good staff hang. Good to hang
What
out
was
with
the
our
total
buddies.
staff turnout?
Oh man, there were at least a dozen people there. There were
Solid.
5 or 6 that flew in from out of state, and then maybe another 5, 6, 7 that were locals or semi-locals who came out, including some folks who we'd never met before who joined up during the pandemic. So great staff hang.
A number of 4GTs, which is cool. A guy bought a super nice Shelby Series 1 supercharged, and man, there's no question when that thing's running that has a supercharger.
That is correct. He had the sandwich board for the car, the whole 9 yards. It was great.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the post now. Heavily modified wide body NSX.
Oh,
And
that
then-
Skyline was very sick.
Yeah,
too.
completely uncut C210, I believe. Right?
110?
110.
110.
Ah, shoot. Yeah,
Is that right?
110.
I don't know if I'm right. You're the Skyline guys.
I know this is so embarrassing, but nice to see.
Oh, the bagged
Uncut.
NSX. You would have liked that one. He was all over the place. That car was
Nice
pretty
little
wild.
nitrous purge going on there.
It was great. It was fantastic, and maybe the crowning glory of the whole thing. Every time people talk about the weather in Seattle, every time I go there, it's delightful. And it was about 80 degrees and not a cloud in the sky.
It was truly glorious.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was amazing.
White 2002 turbo is up there for me. Nice. to see
Very
that car
strong,
there.
very strong car.
Did you guys tour the shop facilities a bit while you were there?
We did. I can't remember if Howard was there or not. We did go in the day before, as the 3 of us had been there years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And
We can't speak about that trip on this podcast.
No. That's
Yeah.
not for public
That's
consumption.
PG-13.
That's correct. Howard and I had a few post-traumatic stress moments.
I see.
Staying downtown, thinking about our 2018 trip. But we did go inside a little bit. They've expanded a lot since we were there last time, and the cars in there, man, it was Carrera GT in there. They were also selling a car that was on site live at the time.
Firebird Trans Am.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so it was just wonderful. All around.
The shop, for people who don't know, is this. My dad always wanted to do what he called a duck club, and just a place to gather with your buddies, have some car storage, have some food, have some wine. The shop is a.
Can I ask the origin of duck in that name, or is
No,
that
it's
also
a-
PG-13 content?
Not for public consumption.
It's a silent generation thing, but nonetheless, the shop has built out a very impressive storage facility. I don't know how many cars, but I mean,
Hundreds.
what 20,000 square feet?
Oh,
or
God,
so,
it was huge.
way more.
Multiple buildings. And then, they've got the Derby, this amazing restaurant which served food to all of our guests, and people said was fantastic.
So it's not only a storage facility, but they have this great restaurant, great bar. So it's really a destination and a social gathering spot. And when they started, now other people have popped up. They were kind of a trailblazer in terms of that concept, and they opened one in Dallas. We're going to do an event there in September. So we're making
Tease it, Howard. Tease the Texas.
we're making the
event.
rounds at the shop, and they're kind enough to host our alumni gatherings this year. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, hope we can blow that one out too. Would you go to Texas, Zach?
I would happily go to Texas. I bought a car in Texas and drove it back. Had a wonderful time. Impressed with the state. Blown away by all the rolling hills and just natural beauty. Not expecting it.
Right.
Are we going to talk about the car you just bought that you're also going to drive back, not from Texas? But from somewhere else? We'll save that.
We'll save that content for another day. Yeah.
I
People already have a low enough opinion of me. They don't need to hear
I also
what's on there.
specifically asked Zach not to tell me because I wouldn't be surprised by it.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
So let's save that one.
I can't even recall the last time the three of us.
I'll just say I packed my Ed Hardy pants, okay?
Oof. Okay. Interesting.
Last time the three of us did this was definitely maybe ended not this year, 2021. So we've obviously had some cool stuff moving through more than we can remember in the last 6 months. But we definitely wanted to touch on some of our favorite listings, current and past. We have been oogling over Countach 5000 QVs.
Just you and I, not Alex.
Well, Alex is part of it.
I like the one with the front wing, which was actually at our Nashville event. The one that had the front and rear wing.
So front wings, we have a white one live currently, no front wing, but the white front wing, I think that's the car from the opening scene of Cannonball, 1983 or 4.
Right.
Would highly recommend we all watch the Cannonball movies if you have nothing to do this weekend. But my favorite one is one we sold a week or two ago, which was black gold wheels. I feel that is the ultimate spec.
Is that wing? No wing?
No wing.
No, rear spoiler.
Rear spoiler,
Yeah,
but yeah, no front wing.
Gotcha.
I'm a 5000 fan myself also, even though I know most favor 400s, but it's pretty impressive to see them really come into their own. We sold failed to sell that Periscopo not far before it, and it's crazy how close in value 5000s have crept up to those.
What accounts for that,
Before they were,
do you think?
Oof, man. I mean, it's all just speculation, subjective opinion at that point, but for me in my generation, I mean, the 5000 is the one you had on your wall.
Right.
So
The poster car with the big scoops and the wing and all that stuff.
it sort of epitomizes the entire 1980s, right? Where the Periscopo and its simplicity is more of a 70s car.
Totally. And that's the one for me, the simple original one, right? That's the one I like the most. They're a little the Countach is a little much for me. I was telling you guys a little bit ago, the Diablo is probably more the car for me. That's one of the first cars I remember really liking as a child was the Diablo.
But the Periscopio, that's a Countach, but LP 400. That's mid 70s, right? So
yeah, totally. Probably designed in the early 70s by
Yeah.
Gandini, right? It's got the weird cutout in the back, and it's got skinny tires, which I like, right?
No flares.
Right.
the 5000 is just way more just macho. And Alex made the comment that the values on those have increased pretty substantially in the last year. But even for a car like that's doubled in value, let's say, like still seems like makes a lot of sense, right?
Sure.
I'm a long, outspoken fan of the new Ford GT. I just think like it looks like $1 million car, and it is. I think 5000 QVE Countaches are kind of, for whatever they're bringing these days, like it just seems like it makes sense. I don't know.
I mean, you're going to win the car show. There's probably not going to be another one, right? So it's good for that.
Yeah, I'm just as insecure as you are, Howard, and I also want to spend $700,000 but have it look like $1 million, and couldn't agree with you more on that.
I mean, I'm looking at our Countach results here. Our first couple ones in 20, we had one in 17, one in 19, and one in 20, and they were all in the 190 to 250 range. And then since 2020, it's $400,000 and up. Right now, $600,000.
I just feel just Lambos in general are so strong right now. We can talk about maybe broader what's going on in the market later on. But we had this past week. What did we have? We had a 09 Murcielago LP 640 Roadster that sold for almost $400,000, a green car. We had a 2014 Aventador LP 700 convertible Roadster, one of those.
Yeah, I can't keep
open car, did similar mid threes. So people's appetite for Lambos, modern and vintage, seems to be.
Lamborghini's so interesting as a company for me because they have so few models relative to their lifespan, and their model cycles are so long compared to other companies. So it is interesting if you want a Lamborghini from the 80s. Well, you have a lot of options. Really, the Countach is the one you look to.
What are your options for modern? Mercy, Aventador.
The Mercy is so strong. Although the one that
Gallardo, Murcielago, Huracan. Sorry, all those Lambo fanboys.
Huracan.
Sorry to my Lambros out there. And then Aventadors.
The Mercy is really interesting with the retracting, scoops and like V12 with them. I mean, they had that V-Drive V12 that they made for a million years.
Sorry, one more. We can't forget the Murcielago with the Aventador body kit that they offered from the factory, the Reventon.
Oh, very good. Okay, Zach, you're dropping some Lambo knowledge. But I feel like a lot of those, and maybe still like from the mid-late 2000s, are just kind of used supercars.
Yeah, well,
maybe a lot of those are coming into their own as kind of more collectible now. I don't know.
They made a lot of them. I think the Gallardo, like they made as many Gallardos as they made all Lamborghinis before that combined or something, right? Like that was their first volume seller, regular doors and all that stuff. That's actually still probably my favorite modern Ferraris. I love Gallardos. I think they
early, like an 03 Gallardo
manual.
That's a cool
rear-wheel drive.
04's first year.
What's that?
04's first year.
They were in production.
I agree.
That's why I want an 03 so bad.
What's the first year that you can get a rear-wheel drive gated manual
Gallardo? I think.
Don't worry, buddy. You're just the head of auctions.
I think 08 or so you could get a 2-wheel drive with a manual, but they were 4-wheel drive up until the later years.
Is that 150, 200 grand? What's a manual?
With a manual, we sold a great one, which was, I believe, refreshed. I think it was a 10 plus with a manual for the mid twos probably a year ago, and I bet it's a little higher now.
Okay. No, well, now I'm less enthusiastic. It's an awful lot of money for
But
that.
then, like, what's like the bottom of that food chain? Like a late 2000s, like what Gallardo Spider E-Gear? That's like bottom of the pecking order.
Yeah, it's still either side of 100, which
Yeah.
is pretty crazy value to dollar. I mean, the noise that comes out of that thing. You look at what R8s are doing, but honestly, I've driven them, and the all-wheel drive system is well suited to that car.
Yeah, totally.
They're not track cars; they're just kind of
Yeah.
cool street cars that sound fantastic. So
I drove one a long time ago, and the box was weird, right? So the manual is what you want. The paddle shift thing was not good, and that was 20 years ago. It didn't feel good, or 15 years ago.
E-Gear, have you driven E-Gear? Those don't have the best
I have
reputation.
driven a
It
year.
slams you into your seat, as I recall, every time you shift.
In my experience, everything everyone has ever said about it is 100% accurate, and it's horrific to drive.
As bad as Maserati can't be a Corsa automated manual.
It's probably the same gearbox. It's probably all just
Probably
jumps
is,
from
actually.
one factory in Italy to another.
Totally.
But to your point about Murciélagos, that car still looks new today. If you saw one parked outside, you wouldn't think it's a 20-year-old car at this point.
That's very accurate.
It's very clean styling. That's I guess that's what gets me about the Countach is there's a lot of crap on it. There's like a lot of stuck on stuff. I like clean styling, and the Mercy has that. Right?
I mean, they're
It's
so new that Kanye West dropped Mercy after the Aventador already came out. So that really should put it in perspective for all
I'd
you
love to
guys.
start quoting some hip hop.
Yeah,
lines.
I think that's the intro track for this podcast, right?
Is it a life goal to do donuts with both scissor doors up on one of the V12 Ferraris for you too, Zach?
Pretty much.
Sorry, adjacent to Kanye, we did sell a Mercy Versace edition.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So
I was
just
not aware
pile
that
them on.
existed. No, that's wonderful. But see, that's like, is that something Ferrari would do? That's what you're talking about them being an interesting brand. They're like, Versace? Hell yes. Like, let's build the Versace.
Yeah,
edition.
Leans leans into sort of the ridiculous of
Right.
it all. They have a sense of humor where Ferrari
Takes
doesn't
himself
seem to.
very seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. A Versace edition Ferrari might be interesting, though. Howard, do you want to talk Heelys?
Well, I want to talk some of our
Opposite end of the spectrum.
favorite auctions, and so this is truly the exact opposite of what we've just been talking about re Lamborghinis, which is a very special Austin Healey we have live currently from Bill Osterley, who's our great friend out in Indianapolis, who's been on this podcast before. Just a great individual, but in any case, we have listed over the years. So we've been a big destination for Heelys. Early 100 series cars, BN1, BN2s.
We had the Earl's Court motor.
That's correct.
Court
Yeah,
show car.
that was my second favorite Healy.
Yes.
We have live now a Healy 100S, which is kind of the top of the top for an early 100 series Healy. They only made 50 of them, or around 50. They were truly built for competition. As so many cars of that period were, right? They're aluminum bodied rather than steel. I think they killed the overdrive gearbox. There's a straight 4-speed. You got the Westlake aluminum head, a number of cool performance modifications, deleted bumpers, and no top. Smaller grill, so some things you could identify a real 100S. S, of course, was named after Sebring, where 100S won either its class or overall in '54. But there's only 50 of these things. Who knows how many exist? It's if you're a Healey admirer, this is the one to have. And the car we have live currently is very, very cool. Had some really neat competition history in the late '50s. The listing has probably 20 or 30 amazing photos of this car at SCCA events in Southern California, in Vegas, Alex.
I know.
There's some neat, there's a SCCA, Southern Nevada chapter I didn't even know existed. They raced in Henderson. I didn't even know where they were running around there. like right that track.
Probably on an airport, right?
Surely
I
a
would
housing
imagine.
development or something.
A lot of
now,
times
but-
they were on airports back then, right? I love that 50s SCCA culture.
But I would encourage anyone who is listening or cares to look at that listing, not only for the car, but for these period photos. And the best thing about any of those photos, obviously, is everything going on in the background, people, cars, just the scene at those, what were, big racing events. And at the time,
The crew cuts and the short sleeve button-up shirts.
everyone ripping cigs,
Yes, totally.
right? Just
Totally.
amazing
The polo
period scenes.
helmets.
Oh, the outfits are fantastic.
Yeah.
Did you catch the shot of it on track with the gull wing behind it? That's
Fantastic.
Yeah.
probably my favorite photo in there.
Yeah, and that's certainly an airport race. See the hay bales, right? Let's set them up on an airfield. I love that kind of stuff so much. And for me, so again, like with the Lamborghini Countach, for me it's Healy 4s all day long over a Healy 6 or a big Healy. I like those later cars too, but
They're just so elegant.
oh,
They're
God, they're beautiful. They're just gorgeous cars, and the idea of a big 4-cylinder, I love it.
But yeah, the picture of these guys, there's a 340mm Ferrari chasing them into a corner. Old Yeller is in the
Old
background
Yeller.
of one of them, which is just an amazing kind of period placement, iconic special that ran.
My pops used to go to this. He was born in the late 30s, and in the 50s, as a high school student in Santa Barbara, California, he would go to the airport, take his 37 Willys coupe that he still owns, set up a ladder, and sit up on top of it and watch these guys race. He saw James Dean drive his 56 Speedster there. He saw Porfirio Rubirosa with Zsa Zsa Gabor there. Right? I think he was driving a Testarossa,
Very interesting.
some kind of a 250. He saw a Middle Eastern royalty guy get thrown from his car and killed, right, running into the hay bales. And Ack Miller driving his he definitely saw Old Yeller, but Ack Miller had I think a 32 Ford, right? He had a modified hot rod that he ran.
He ran a number of things.
Yeah.
What your dad went to? What races exactly? All of them?
He went to quite a few around Southern California in the 50s.
Mhm.
So in 1955, he was 16 years old. And so most of the time he was going to his local races, which were at the Santa Barbara airport, just around hay bales. But all the big names were there, and all the, Phil Hill and 250 Testarossas and all that kind of stuff. Probably this car, right? Probably was there in Santa Barbara in the mid-50s.
Speaking of 250 series Ferraris, we have you guys. I don't mean to close the door on the Healy discussion.
No. Go.
We have this Tour de France bodied 59, a car that started life as a 250 GT coupe, but that was very, very properly rebodied. Well, rebodied doesn't tell the whole story because it was recreated into a very, very accurate recreation of a 14 Louvre 250 Tour de France, which I think is certainly in the top three of most beautiful 50s and 60s Ferraris, at least for me.
100%.
And recreation replicas can go a lot of directions, but in this particular, and we've sold a number of interesting replicas, either replicas or cars that are based off of a real 59 Ferrari, but that has been rebodied or retooled to look like something that didn't start life as. But this particular car is pretty special, and we'll see. I'm very curious to see what it sells for, if it sells and who buys it. But it's one of the prettiest cars I think we've ever sold. I wish it was a real 14 Louvre TDF, but this is truly the next best thing.
Well, maybe you drive it around a little bit. It's not like it's cheap, even on a Pininfarina coupe on a PFC chassis. But it's boy, is it pretty, and that interior is absolutely incredible. It's a very good recreation using a real a genuine and very kind of important Ferrari that it's built on. Right, it's not built on some tube frame chassis with like a 330 Ferrari motor in it. Right, it's built on a real.
And the people chassis. are going nuts in the comments in a great way. I mean, there is some deep dives into correct Tour de France builds, fasteners, what goes where, oil filters, and it's a pretty neat education if you're into that, over and above what the car looks like. So.
And that early Ferrari kind of maroon color, is it Chiara? What is that not the Corso Rosso Corsa, that earlier color that so many of the Ferrari competition cars were. I love that color. Beautiful car. Very excited to have that one on site.
I think we only said red paint. Come on, it's got to be sexier than that.
Can I talk about another recreation that we had since it's been so long since we connected? One of my favorite cars that's ever been on the site, which was our Bugatti Type 59, which blurs the lines even more between recreation and what's real and what's not, right? So
Yes.
This is the
original Widowmaker.
Just one of the most beautiful. Another car that my dad educated me on and taught me about many years ago. We saw one at Monterey, that kind of rough, unrestored one that goes to Monterey a lot. That's dark blue.
I'm sorry, I think maybe the Type 55 was the original Widowmaker, not the 59. We can come back to that.
Okay.
Yes, this car was cool. It was
59 is the last Bugatti Grand Prix car. It was not successful, I don't believe, because it was racing against Silver Arrow Mercedes and whatever the fast Maseratis were right before World War II. But
they're so neat, and like the concept of having one that's quote unquote in 2022 all original, and basically that just is almost a literal impossibility.
Totally.
So this car had a lot of original Type 59 parts on it,
including a real 59 chassis, right?
Yeah,
so the whole build is built on a real Type 59.
Sorry, I'm being unfair. It was much more than just some 59
I think it
parts.
is a Type 59. I think it's fair to call it that. Yeah. There was a lot of debate about whether or not we should call it that, right? This is like one of those like internal decisions, right? It was built by a top Bugatti restorer. The parts are all authentic. The chassis is a real Type 59 chassis, but the car was, we use like the 7th Bugatti Royale, right? Like it's put together out of real pieces. What does that make it? I think it makes it the real thing, but it's not a car that has period competition history. Although so many race cars have been rebuilt so many times, like they're all, ship a thesis, right?
Yeah, so it didn't sell, which is a shame, but we loved having it. It was beautifully presented. But that's that's a true connoisseur's car, right? That's
100%.
That's nobody's first vintage car.
Piano wire wheels, all the amazing Ettore Bugatti features that are on that. It's got the oil cooler, Zach, that sits up next to you, right? It pokes up out of the cockpit next to the little windscreen. This thing, right? That's an oil cooler. So the oil tank is next to you in the cockpit, and they run the oil up through this little baffle up over the front of the windscreen. I mean, I love Bugatti, period Bugatti technology, and it's all. The Type 35 is the classic example and has so many of those cool, innovative Bugatti features. But this car is kind of the ultimate embodiment of all of that, right? And has the big supercharged straight 8 5-liter.
Well, recreations is, don't let me stop you guys at Bugattis. I know you got that correction you got to go back to, Howard. But from recreations, did you guys catch the creation?
His mind wanders freely.
Yeah, totally. The creation that was recently on the site a few weeks ago, the mid-engine Camaro.
Oh,
Did
man,
you
that was
guys
an
catch
interesting car.
This was actually
Black
one
car?
of my favorite listings. Yes, black car.
Yeah, and it sold. I think I fielded that one originally.
Yeah, that was a fantastic listing. One of those ones where a guy could photograph in his garage and you could say, this probably isn't for us this week. Or a guy could come out with stellar pics and say, wow, that's pretty interesting.
We talk about a car that someone built for themselves. That's it, but it was pretty neat. People
what is it? It's a first-gen Camaro, Zach? Explain the spec. It's very
68
weird.
Camaro. It was lengthened 5 inches. It is a Chevy Lumina roof from the 90s. And what I would say are probably a less than tasteful set of wheels. Would have loved to see it on the smaller wheels pictured in the gallery.
Some Pantera wheels. It's Pantera-esque a little bit.
It is a little Pantera-esque, yeah. But, man, I just appreciate the guy that envisioned this and executed kind of homebrew style. And I think it was actually pretty well done, all things considered. Again, probably changed the wheels on that thing.
I would too.
But
some campies. I wonder if that was the idea, now that I think about it. Like, let's do a Chevy Pantera, right? Rather than the Ford mid-engine thing, take a Camaro and make it a mid-engine car.
interesting. I would like to know what.
I would too. You'd like to know what was going through the, speaking of minds wandering freely, you'd like to know what was happening in the mind of the guy who cooked that thing up?
Yeah, I would like to know how many Marlboro Reds he ripped through building this thing at home when it was first incepted, right?
Oh, man, totally.
But that was a wonderful. I mean, probably most famously, Bugatti and Bentley were both supercharging the hell out of their competition cars. People like King Leopold of Belgium were ordering Type 59s and going and racing them, or having their kin race. And man, what a time to be alive.
What an era. What an era. I mean, the Mercedes, too. Remember, we saw a couple of years ago at that alumni gathering in Sonoma, they had a 154, I think, right? A Silver Arrow right before the war, 3-liter V12 supercharged, running around the track, running on methanol or something, as I recall. The smell.
And then they had the
They had my favorite. They had a
W154.
center steer 196 also.
196.
Right. They did not drive that car though.
Yeah.
That car stayed in the garage. But the 154 was amazing. Guy was wearing a leather helmet and the whole thing.
Man, can you imagine this? The what's required to run that thing per mile? I mean,
there's 500-600 horsepower in these cars, right? They were going very, very fast, and these tracks had a lot less kinks in them, a lot longer straightaways. I mean, a lot of those guys died, obviously.
mm-hmm.
Incredible stuff.
Mm.
What else should we talk about, guys?
Oh man, usually that's the universal sign of let's call it a wrap.
No, I'm trying not to talk too much. I want to talk about the Copper State a little bit, Zach.
Cool. You want to segue
I'm
into
sorry,
Copper
we
State?
totally missed the Copper State. So we were going to do a podcast episode. Zach and Alex did the Copper State 1000. That's now 2-3 months in the rear view, and we were very naughty and did not record the podcast we were supposed to, but. You guys had a real adventure, so I'd love to hear about that.
Sure, we can start with sharing the car we did it in. Randy was kind enough to let us take his Falcon, which is technically BAT alumni, right?
Yeah. It was on the site.
On the site, 2016, sort of tulip rally style. That's what the car is modeled after. It's a 289 built into a 331, if I recall correctly.
That's right. With a very large carburetor on it, as we found out.
Oh, we'll get into the carb situation a little bit later. But yeah,
really well done, really nice,
Beautiful.
kind of matte finish, black wheels. Like it's
Zach, talk a little bit about the response. People were fired up. About
the interest of people not attending the event,
Yeah.
which what was most impressive. Everybody goes to the gas station. They don't care about the Carrera RS lightweight. They say shove off to the TZ1, and then they go right up to the Falcon and want to geek out about, is it a 63.5? And just rambling a lot of Arizona gas station fast talk.
Arizona gas station talk is great.
Man.
Yeah.
So the Copper State is a 1,000-mile event, but you guys did not drive it 1,000 miles.
No,
we tried.
We did the whole thing.
Yeah, we probably, maybe we had to go off route to limp it back once or twice. There were some struggles at altitude, I would say.
Running lean or running rich?
Running very rich because less air up at altitude, right?
Honestly, not a lot of running.
Yeah,
that was sort of the big problem.
Yep. We was running fine down in Phoenix, and then the first stage, the first day you're running up to altitude, and we had our first problem the first time we stopped.
So first day, you're down in the flats. Car's making good power. You're jazzed.
Yep.
You take off out of Diablo Stadium. You're
found
rocking
out,
and rolling.
Yeah, found out a bunch of stuff about the car we didn't know. Like gas gauge doesn't work. Has a fuel cell. How big is it? We don't know. Let's pull our phone out and look at the 2016 listing. I don't think that was accurate because it took a lot more gas than we said it had capacity for.
And you start going up into the hills, and what happens? The car just.
We stopped for gas. I was like, so the first stage I was panicked because we didn't know what the gas situation was. But we make it to a gas station. We were running with Colin Comer in his GT350 Shelby, fast gauge on empty for a long time. Zach, a fantastic person for mellowing me out, always saying, "Don't worry about it, we'll be fine." We made it to the gas station, started at the gas station, but then after lunch it did not start, and that was
it's probably all the Valium I was slipping into your water that weekend.
We don't need to ramble on about all the problems, but basically the first 2 days we couldn't. Especially after you'd stop the car and you'd try to fire it back up again, it wouldn't keep running, and I could just tell it was running rich. You could smell it, and we tried to do a little bit of a hotel parking lot tune-up on day one, had some help on that. Car ran worse on day two, and then God bless him, our boy
found
Colin
a better
Comer.
parking lot mechanic on day two.
That was Colin Comer.
Worked at a similar rate of $3.99.
$3.99.
Comer saved the day. Comer, shout out to you if you're listening. What wheel magic was he able to wield to get it back on the road?
Well, he got a couple large dudes who were traveling with one of the teams, guys who had, I think the car they were servicing was a Ferrari, but of course in their tool chest they had lots of Holley carb jets, and so they were able to lean it out such that it ran at altitude really well. Took it out that night,
and that was actually when we got the most interesting person to come and look at the car. The hotel backs up to a freeway, so people can see the parking lot of the hotel from the freeway. and this guy said I was driving on the freeway and saw you guys standing around this Ford Falcon. So I exited so I could talk to you about this Ford Falcon.
And he showed up and got out of his car and was
Yeah.
chopping
He was
it
like,
up.
I've got a 63 and a half. I've been working on for this
Did he roll
amount
the
of years.
sleeves up and get under there?
No, but there was that was a wonderful evening. Both Zach and I were feeling pretty defeated. The car hadn't been running well for a while. People on the event, and we can talk more about this. The event was wonderful. The organizers and all the other people driving on the event were amazing, and they were very helpful on working with the car. But that was one of those, I don't know if you've experienced this, Howard, you probably have at races and stuff, where the hood is up, it's the evening time, people have had maybe 1 or 2 beers, and then they kind of start gravitating around the car that's got the hood up. A lot of old dudes giving advice, I don't know if I'd do that. And, there was a lot of that happening, and luckily Comer was there to organize it all and keep it straight, and got some interesting stories from some other people, some interesting advice, but all got sorted out. And
people continue with their diagnostics after you already know what the problem is, but there's still opinions.
Here's what I'd do if I was you. A lot of different. You need a smaller carburetor. You need a bigger carburetor. You need vacuum advance. You need to get rid of the vacuum advance. Like a lot of that. But it was all it got sorted in the end, and then the last couple of days, the car ran fantastic.
That was it.
That was it.
It was down on power a little bit, but still plenty fast.
And Zach, you got a real education in big, powerful cars and drum brakes, huh?
Yeah, I would say that the Falcon is great, leaves a little bit to be desired in terms of stopping, and its cornering abilities are
formidable.
Yeah.
Formidable.
It has grip.
Yeah, it grips. It can take some speeds it can take some turns at high speed, but the confidence going into them, at least from what I'm used to, is not quite on par with European cars of a similar vintage.
It is not a 73 911, that is for sure. But I loved it. I kind of fell in love with it by the end. Has a T5 in it, gearbox, which was fantastic. I think you would agree with that too, Zach.
Yeah, the gearbox and powertrain are just phenomenal. I was shocked at how well it put the power down. I mean, it dynos over 400, and what did it have, 225s in the rear, if even?
235.
World-class T5, can't be beat.
Yeah,
pretty phenomenal. The comfort was another thing that made it a particularly good car for that event, was it's just a lot of driving, mostly straight. So it was perfectly suited for the event. But man, those brakes are much more of a suggestion pedal than anything you could use in a panic stop.
Can we go back to something you said? You were running along at a good clip, as is tradition on the Copper State, and the fuel gauge was reading empty. Zach, you were freaking out, and I'm sorry. And the backstory there is you just trusted or assumed that the tank was bigger than.
I think we pulled up the listing while we were in the car trying to figure it out. I mean, we were in a spot.
You clearly didn't want to just get gas.
No, it wasn't that. We were headed to Seligman, and there was no gas station.
I see.
Listing said 18 gallons, and by our math, we'd burned 15.
That's right.
So
this is a 10 mile per gallon car.
Was that the basic assumption?
Correct. And I talked to Comer about that too. He's like, "That's right. That's about right for that." So there were quite a few GT350s, and I presume they were getting similar gas mileage. Mm-hmm. They have a similar sized carburetor on a similar sized engine.
Okay, you applied some fairly intelligent guesswork to.
We did the best we could, Howard.
Yeah, we're fine. We made it.
People were so freaking good. You've done that event, and the people are so wonderful. The organizers are so wonderful. The towns, and then for me, the scenery. I love the American West and the kind of big sky country.
Prescott blew me away. Yeah. Have you done much hanging in Prescott, Howard?
I've driven through it.
Have you stopped to enjoy the finer whiskey bars of Prescott?
I have not, but please tell me that you guys did.
Oh yeah, the bar scene in Prescott is stellar.
Interesting.
Ton of charm. Yeah, good, authentic feel. Feels like the bars have really been there for 200 plus years.
Yep.
Walk into the western doors, which somehow don't feel hokey. Only I do, being in that bar in my black V-neck and jeans. Yeah, Prescott was probably the highlight of the trip for me.
Incredible place.
Little America still there?
I'd lived there many years ago, going to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, learning how to fly, and I hadn't been back in 15 years, and it was exactly as I remember. Same bars.
Alex, more tales from your misspent youth. I didn't know that.
Yep. Man, it was great. I loved it. I had such a good time with Zach. It was a great hang with Zach, and everyone. The people on the rally were wonderful the whole time, but really let their hair down that night. We were buying everyone whiskey, even some of the people who had been reluctant earlier. It was wonderful.
Yeah, the
Great.
organizers are the other star of the show. You get a couple drinks in them, and
The tails come out. Yeah, that's for sure.
good
Yeah,
talks
the men's
for
council does a great job, men's art council, and the hospitality on that event, as I recall, was
Top-notch.
pretty second to none in terms of
Top-notch.
what you can do.
Top-notch.
and
They,
stuff
they,
like
they,
that.
they create a vibe on that event for everyone that clearly is enjoyed universally. We were lucky to be there.
Man, the car spread, just the highlights. I think there are 2 300 SL Roadsters. There are 2 DB4s. There is an E-Type lightweight replica, which was very well done. That could have been my
Oh, an Aero.
favorite.
It was an Aero Coupe replica.
Yes.
The like fastback,
Mhm.
low roof, low drag car.
Yeah.
Man, I love that car. Yeah, TZ1, as I mentioned. There was that Alpina modified CS where I asked the guy, so what authentic Alpina parts are on this car? And he responded in such an endearing way and said, honestly, I really don't know. He basically said, I wrote a check for 150 grand for this thing, and I'm just stoked to be driving around.
He said, just look at it. Isn't it
Yeah.
awesome?
That's right.
But I appreciated his honesty. I feel like a lot of guys will start to flub and make up this and that on that car. And he said, you know what? I don't really know or care. I just like the car.
That's amazing.
There were probably
appreciate it.
5 or 6 Carrera RSs, including a no wing car. I mean, there was a large number of those.
Mhm.
A lot was muscle car heavy, like Zach said. A lot of straight line driving, so a lot of Shelbys, Corvettes.
4 or 5 GT350s,
Yep.
2 of which are
You in
hers.
some fast trains going down the
Yes, indeed.
Oh yeah, that 330 GTC.
Oh yeah,
was
we
pretty
hustled
quick.
pretty good with them. Yeah. That was the one kind of dice that we got into, but one of the only windy roads. That was great. Our buddy Mike in the Studebaker bought on Bring a Trailer the Carrera Panamericana. Studebaker.
Cristola dude. We love that guy.
He's
the
an
man.
incredible dude. Love Mike.
And Chukasad in the DB2 that he
That's
also
right.
bought on site.
That's correct. TZ1 was the car for me. What a
Mhm.
great car. Not sure it would have been super comfortable for that event, but man, it looked great.
I think the Isolero was probably my favorite car.
Oh,
in that event. I
yeah.
mean, you never see those in the wild.
There was a
Yeah.
Cord. There was a Cord 810 on the event. The guy had apparently done it many times. He had the classic Cord problem. The front doors are suicide, and if you drive them too fast, they can unlatch and blow backward and sideways. That happened to him.
You know,
Oh,
never
yeah.
a good sign of an event car when you only see it at the hotel at the end of the night. But the Matra
So true.
on the event could have been my favorite
yeah.
as well. I mean,
Yeah.
when else do you see that
That's
car out in the wild and actually running on fast roads?
Oh, there's a Cunningham C2R, C2. It's an open Cunningham. Yeah.
C4R.
No, earlier than that, a C2 or a C3,
Mhm.
open, kind of brutal early Cunningham, but awesome to see that.
Mhm.
Can't remember if it was a overhead valve or if it was a Hemi. But amazing spread of cars, and all of them being driven in the heat.
If you could do it over, what car would you do it in? And Howard, what would be your preferred car of choice?
I mean, I'd probably want to do it in like a GT40. Although you'd be
I
cooking.
think you'd
that
bake
thing.
in a GT40.
Yeah,
Actually,
I
would
mean, you'd
not
bake in a
be.
300 SL too. So I'd rather at least be going 140 miles an hour.
I mean, I like muscle cars for that. Randy's buddy Stu was there in a Cyclone with like a side oiler 427.
GT500 KR. I love those.
Yes, that's it. That would be a really good one. Something with overdrive. I mean, like the seats and the overdrive gearbox that we had were like so necessary. Whatever I was driving, I would want that. But like something with very good high speed comfort cruising, like something that's very comfortable cruising at high speed.
Randy's Chrysler made a lot of sense on that event to me.
Totally.
Well, that's just comfort. He checked the comfort box fast enough. No one else has it on the event, and you're cruising in that thing.
Oh yeah.
One hand on the wheel, max.
Yeah, that black car with the 3-speed, that would be strong. I don't know if it can cruise at 100 miles an hour the way
Wow.
the Torque Flight can. But yeah, something that you're comfortable in at triple digit speeds. There's also a delightful Nevada state trooper police escort, and so
Arizona.
Arizona state trooper police escort on bikes. Had beers with those guys. They were also amazing.
Yep.
The police officers who were on that event, great dudes, really interesting, and love doing that event. And they let you get along at a pretty good pace, which is awesome.
All right, there you have it. I think I don't know if we got car stuff coming up this summer. You guys are doing some interesting drives
Events
around.
Let's plug the events. That's what people should come to.
Monterey coming up. That's our next big alumni gathering.
Registration open currently.
Unfortunately, the first Montreal miss in like 8
Oh,
years.
is that? Yeah, that's third weekend of August, Monterey Car Week. So no explanation needed for that. But we're doing our alumni gathering on Saturday instead of Turn 3 at Laguna Seca. That'll be awesome, as it always is.
Then Tejas, we've got the shop at Texas, previously mentioned, Dallas. That is in September, I want to say. And then our last gathering of the year, which I'm excited for, is Audrain Concours in
October 1st. So that'll be great. Good to be here with you guys. Alex, any final thoughts? I know you've been trying to not talk as much, but I think you've been
well, great. And yet I dominated the conversation anyway.
That's why we have you here, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.